We had a great visit with Sean at Sean's Non-Stock Customs. Bruce came back from Halifax with so much good video, he decided to make the Sean's Non-Stock Customs episode a two-part show. Part 1 is getting to know Sean. You don't want to miss the story about the bike on the lift. Part 2 is about Sean's business. As well, Sean shows Bruce all the features of the new hardtail kit for the Yamaha XS 650. Please subscribe to Speed and Color, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a question or a comment.
Well, here I am after the red-eye flight from Calgary to Halifax. Here I am in the Maritimes and super excited about this episode. I'm here with a guy that I think he's amazing. I really do. I don't know him that well yet. What I know so far, I think he's amazing. Some of you may know the reason I'm here partially is to pick up the new hardtail for the XS 650. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I wound up here for a hardtail for an XS 650, but we'll get to that in a second. Right now, I want you to get to know this man. So Sean, and again, here I go, I've done this on other episodes, I don't know your last name.
McLennan.
McLennan.
Yeah.
Sean McLennan.
Well, nice to meet
you.
Good to
Bruce.
meet you. Yes, bud.
Yeah. So Sean McLennan has Sean's Non-Stock Customs,
That's correct, yeah.
Which is SNS Customs on Instagram. Sean does a great job with his social media. Really like the stuff he does.
Thank you.
He's very, very friendly, very personable, just makes it very casual. It's absolutely worth checking out. So let's get to know Sean a little bit. Sean, where are you from? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What's the deal?
Well, I grew up in a lot of places across Canada. My father was in the RCMP for 36 years, so I was kind of like that kid that moved from town to town a lot until they moved to Nova Scotia. He retired because he was close to home because mom and dad are both from Cape Breton Island. Okay. But I was born in Portage-la Prairie, Manitoba.
Oh, really?
Then shortly after that, moved to Newfoundland for 5 years. And then moved to Saskatchewan, lived in Regina for, I want to say 5 years, and then moved to Ottawa. So I was in a place called, it was called Russell, and it was in the Prescott. Yes. Do you know where it is?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I grew up most of my life there, so I still have a lot of friends there. So I grew up from I think it was grade 1 to grade 10, and we went to started high school there, and then we moved here when I was 16, and I've been in Nova Scotia ever since and love it. Miss some of my friends that, it was a hard move, especially at that age, kind of separating from your friends at 16 to move to another place that you don't know, another new high school. But I kind of rambled around for years, and now I'm here, started a family, and this is home.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, you told me something about Canmore.
Yes, I lived out there. So, here, so I grew up skimboarding, snowboarding, skateboarding, all those kind of sports. And here we kind of me and a few buddies kind of got seriously into snowboarding, loved it, loved the feeling of it. And if you want to go to the ultimate, you go to the Rockies to do that stuff, right? Because that's where the best snowboarding and the powder and stuff is there. So we rode here. It was all ice and hard pack, groomed and stuff like that. So we went out to Canmore. Now this was before Canmore was exploded and has industrial parks and stuff like that. And we would go ride in Fernie as well. But when we went out there, people thought we were crazy because we were so used to landing on hard-packed snow. When we got out to the powder, that's where we could really kind of let ourselves go, where we knew you're not as prone to getting hurt if you're falling in powder as you
Yeah.
are on hard packed snow. So they thought we were crazy, the guys from the East Coast, right? So, that's okay with us.
Yeah, that's okay. Good.
Yeah. So that's that. So I ended up there, lived there for probably just a year, came home because my best friend had gotten hurt out there, not to bring us down, but he had a C2 injury. He cracked a vertebrae and he had walked away from it. And he came home and we were kind of bummed out. So I came home after that summer. My uncle, Donald Marshall, he is a truck driver. So that was one of my first jobs, like here is swamping furniture in the summers and stuff like that. Mm. And it was handy for me because I got all the truck drivers' names and numbers. And if I needed a ride out west, I would just work my way out west and work my way back. So my buddy Daniel, he got hurt and he came home. It wasn't the same. So I came home and gave, life some serious thought and ended up going to trade school. But Daniel healed up and walked away from he just cracked to C2, right? So your C2 is your second vertebrae down, I think. Mm-hmm. So he went up north to learn like boat building trade, but with all like old school like tools, like nothing automated or anything. And they were building dories and stuff like that. And he was on a motorcycle. They were riding around dirt bikes and stuff, and he ended up getting hurt again. And when he fell off the bike, the old injury where it was weakened, it actually he had a really serious C2 injury and was quadriplegic after that. No. And so he did a lot though. Like even you would say that's gonna stop someone or mess up your life, but he was a spokesman. Like he went and talked all over the place about like quadriplegic injuries and stuff like, or spinal cord injuries. Sorry. Mm-hmm. And he sailed boats and races with a sip and puff. Like it's a control. So he actually did it here in Halifax. There was like this big race for those that people that had that injury, like wheelchairs and stuff. So it was really cool. And not to get on a downer, but he eventually passed away. He succumbed to his injuries, right? So, and that was a tough pill to swallow for me because he was my best friend, and it was it was motorcycle related, yes, but like I don't look down upon, like I love motorcycles still, and yourself, anytime we go out that we're basically just flesh on a bike.
A risk.
Exactly, but I mean the feeling for me building and riding these machines outweighs the risk. Like there's just no other better feeling. Right. So that's a little bit about myself, moving around a bit, and a little bit how I got out west and how I came back, and then went to trade school. I took HVAC. Now there was a program in high school in Ontario that I took, and I got I was 15 or 16, and I started welding and stuff like that in the welding shop and working on like lawnmowers, and there were some cars in the shop, and there were two big Bridgeport knee mills, and there was a big do you know what a turret lathe is? Like it's got, so you can change it. So there was a turret lathe with I think it was a 12, it had a 12 post tool chain. Like you could spin the turret and it would change your tool. Right. And I got some experience on that and really, really liked it, and started probably seriously welding in my early 20s. I got big into TIG welding, and I did welding for what I do for HVAC. There was there's welding required. So I knew I liked that. And then I put myself through a night school course for welding. and did that. And I've been welding since I was probably, 20 something, and I'm 48 now, but it was always a transition. Like I started off stick welding, and then I turned to MIG, and then eventually about 18 years ago, I started TIG welding. So I got like for anybody that's out there wondering, because I get asked a lot of questions. How did you get into this? And I don't have like a motorcycle background. I don't have my dad had a bike, but he sold it. My brother and I were getting older, and my brother was riding it around the yard. My old man's like, can't get rid of this, just, because I don't want the boys to get hurt on it and stuff like that. But I've always loved motorcycles from a very young age. So like dirt bikes, like if there was a dirt bike, like I was just constantly near it, looking at the gas tank, looking at the tires, the way the fenders were, how the gas cap was, how the vent on, like it was so mysterious to me. Right. And then my friend was like, do you want to drive this? I said, yeah. I don't know how to drive it though. I was just a kid. And where I grew up in Prescott, there was a lot of farm fields and stuff like that, like wide open places where you're not going to bump into anything. And I took it for a first ride. And ever since that, like the only thing I can compare it to is like when you're snowboarding, or like it's the same kind of feeling that you get, same rush, like riding these things as I got from snowboarding and skateboarding. Like it's the same kind of, but it's amplified for this because you're building these with your mind and your skill set at the time. And every one that you build, you're getting better. Right. It's better than the last one. And your mindset changes, your tastes change, the thirst for knowledge about what tubing to use, what material, what process for, everything, how you're going to assemble this bike and build this bike. It becomes, you're unknowingly learning because you're loving what you're learning. Does that make sense to you at all?
Absolutely.
Because you love it so much, you're reading about it, and you're picking up all this knowledge. And this day and age, it's easier to do for us because we're connected to social media and stuff like that. And you can, and YouTube has been wonderful, for
YouTube's awesome.
It is. Yeah. I need to work on my YouTube game, but just building I don't like the word addictive, but it's like, it's very gratifying. And it doesn't matter if you build a full bike. You could build your motor, or maybe you built an oil tank or something for the first time. Like I built springers, and the first time I started, I had a springer like this, and I wanted a wishbone, and DNA didn't make a wishbone at the time. I just had a chrome DNA springer, and I remember I'm like, okay, I'm going to use DOM tubing because that's high-end tubing. It's a little more expensive. I didn't want to use chromoly just because I just didn't want to. I felt more comfortable with DOM. There's flex and everything in it. It's got good elasticity, and it's got good yield and tensile strength. So I built a little fixture. I TIG welded everything up, put my plunger rods, and then my buddy and I at the time, Joey, who I built another bike for a Sportster, we went and road tested it that weekend. And I remember going, oh man, it was just the front part like this that I had built, but it made my front end look the way I wanted it. Right. And I remember being kind of a little bit scared because I had built it, and I've never built, anything on a front end. And TIG welded it, it was solid, everything was good. At the time, I had a machine shop machine a couple of pieces for me. There's some guys, now I have my own machine shop and everything. There were guys down the street, the old man, he liked me, so he would hook me up with deals and stuff like that. And then eventually I ended up putting heat pumps in for them down the road. But getting back to road testing that, and I'm kind of hitting bumps and watching it. And then 15 minutes later, I'm just cruise. I'm yeah, this is okay, I know that this is, so, I get asked a lot of questions. How did you get into it? Or, like equipment specific questions like, hey, I want to get into TIG welding. And if you get into it, it can either be really expensive or really cheap. And if like you can get so many different welders now, you don't need to go out and buy a big box welder. You can get something that's, half decent for fairly cheap. And then that way you're not really out of pocket. If you try it and you test it and you're like, this isn't for me, you're not into like, big expense. And then, you're not losing on the sale. Like you could sell that, someone will scoop that welder up and, and buy it, but yeah, that's kind of.
Well, and Karen bought me one of those nice little Lincoln TIGs. TIG made $1,500 or whatever on sale. Yeah, does Lincoln's aluminum, high frequency, does it all, foot pedal.
Did you try it out?
For me, it's awesome, right? Yeah. Now, my problem is me, not the welder. Because I waited way too long in life, and now I've got essential tremors, so I shake. And if I get it going right, it's really good because I'm dabbing when I should be, right? And it's
the main thing is just when you're doing anything like that, like the number one main thing, the two main things are be comfortable and cleanliness. And when you're TIG welding, watch your puddle. Just watch, but TIG welding is it's grown so much. Like how many TIG welding YouTube channels are there? Do you know what I mean? Just for like guys, like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just TIG. The only reason I do TIG is because it's very clean. So when I'm building a frame, I pre-polish everything, and then TIG is just, I have more control. It takes a lot more time to do it than MIG, because MIG, and even MIG has changed over the years. Now they have pulse MIG and all these crazy options that come with it. And like even for doing aluminum, stainless steel, like mild steel, everything. Welding has jumped in leaps and bounds. And it has a lot to do with social media and shows like SEMA, where people can there was another really cool, I forget the name of it, but there's like trade shows for fabricators and stuff like that. And people can go and do hands-on, like, and test these tools and stuff like that with their in person and come up with a conclusion whether you like it or not. But fabricating I'd say over the past 20 years, like, has really...
Well, and, that's such a great message, and that's part of what impresses me so much about Sean is no engineering background, I take it? No university stuff? No, you're not a millwright?
Just trade school.
Yeah. So, a big part of the message I try and send with this project I've got going is just do it. Yeah. Like, go ahead, build a custom motorcycle. Yeah. You can do it. Yeah. We can all do it. And, again, my message there now, 20 whatever years of experience, I get it. Sean's been doing this for a while. But as he says, the technology is so good, the stuff is there. I'm a member at a local makerspace. Yeah. And we've got a big lathe, and we've got a milling machine, and we got all this stuff. So I don't have to have it at home. I can just go over for $55 a month. Yeah. I can go over and use whatever I need. There's a welding area. If I want to do dirty stuff that I don't want to do in my garage at home, I go do it over a proto space, because it doesn't matter if I get it dirty, right? So it's a good thing. So if you're out there and you're thinking, gee, I can't do that. Yeah, you can. Yeah. Jump in and do it.
And the community's there for you too. Like we were talking earlier, like some provinces and stuff, the community's smaller. Like on the East Coast, it's not going to be as big on the West Coast and down in the States and stuff like that. But there is a community, and people will help you. Like I was really blessed. Like when I started doing this, like just so many people helped me. And so many people like pump me up, and like not pump me up ego, but pump me up to get like not motivated, but just excited to build stuff. And they were very welcoming, even getting your stuff published. It's like I've been published in magazines before, and it's only because it's through the friends that I have in the community, that stuff like that happens. So, I mean, and don't be scared to dive in and, and kind of just feel it out. If it's not for you, then maybe designing. But for a guy like me, like I grew up, I was never good at school. I quit high school at like grade 11. I was in special ed my whole life. So they're like, what do we do with this guy? He doesn't do any work, because I was so withdrawn because I wasn't liking what I was learning. And I was the type of student where if I'm withdrawn, I'm just not, I don't like it. I'm not, not that I was rebelling, but so from grade 2 on, right up to high school, I was in like special class, like special ed, and I don't care. That they didn't know what to do with me. And then it wasn't until I went to trade school and then I excelled. I was like getting hundreds on every test, every exam. My interprovincial, I passed. Like those are hard tests to pass. And I'm taking courses like fluid dynamics, and it's mathematics that has to make sense. So I'm scoring high marks on that. So it's amazing when you like what you're learning, how fast you can learn something, because you're just you engulf yourself into it, right?
Yep, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, cool.
Maybe too much.
And what about, like I saw you doing some CAD work and stuff there this morning. You self-taught?
I taught myself CAD. I had an older gentleman who was a tool and die maker, and took me aside for a few years and showed me how to manually machine, mill, and do things the correct way, like in all the tooling and stuff like that. A lot of spinning tools, like for lathe and stuff, like if you're trying to obtain a certain shape, it's just you have to make those tools for yourself. Then I got into tool design and manufacturing. Like I built my English wheel over there. I built my power hammer. I built like my planishing hammers and everything that I shape my metal with, like the fender behind you. Like I shaped that from 18 gauge cold rolled, and like your bead roller and stuff like that. But I really enjoy building tools. And then I started making welding tables, like because I had purchased this years ago. And then your mind starts to think, you're sitting there at night and going, I can do that.
And this is?
CNC plasma.
And the reason I ask you that is for the podcast, because there's people who can't see us, right?
CNC plasma table. So this kind of like this really helped me cut my teeth. And back when I bought this, there wasn't a whole lot available on the market. Now it's flooded with it. Right. So the OG guys, ArcLight Dynamics, really good guys out of Bend, Oregon, I called them, and I mean, they helped me with everything, and we custom built this for me. It's even got a rotary cutter, so you can put like a 6-inch diameter tube in there, and you can cut round stuff. So not a whole lot of these existed in the province, and I was the first one to have that, so I could cut round stuff, and it kept me busy. I was nervous to buy it because it was like my first really big purchase at S&S Customs, and I had it paid off in 6 months.
Wow.
So it's just
good for you.
But so I was doing 4-wheeler grills and winch plates and all that stuff. And then I started doing signage, and now we build like heat pump covers. All of our parts are roughed out on that. And then, we can program the mill to profile everything. Like, it's a must have. And I couldn't work without it, because before, you know what I did? Hand grinder and flat discs.
Yep.
And that makes a mess in your shop, right?
It sure does. Yeah. It sure does. And now, if you're building one bike and you're in your garage at home, that is the way you're going to do it.
That's right. You have to, right?
Yeah.
I remember. So, go ahead.
Just tell us, what all do you have in house here?
So I have. Well, we'll start from over there, and I'll just kind of point. Is that okay?
Sure, and just tell us what it is.
So over there's a Scotchman. This is an iron worker. See the blue thing?
Yep.
So that's a portafab. That'll stamp circles, squares, ovals. it'll shear, bend, and cut a 3/4 inch solid round rod. So that's a very handy tool. So when I'm doing like my transmission ears and stuff like that, I can punch a perfect oval for your 3/8 bolt to slide into your transmission, and everything kind of slides.
Right.
So it works in conjunction with a lot of this stuff. Like I'll pre-cut it out here, and then I end up cleaning up everything. And if I want the holes to be really precise, I'll use the iron worker. Beside the iron worker is a shrinker stretcher, the little blue guy over there. You've probably seen those before.
They're very cool.
Very handy. Yeah. Beside that is my Mittler Brothers bead roller. Mittler Brothers, they've been really good to me over the years. They actually sold me 2 of the upper and lower arms to the power hammer I built, which I'm pretty stoked about. I built that with my father probably about 5 or 6 years ago. Beside that, I have a wet saw. And beside the wet saw, I have an Evolution dry saw, which I really, really like. It has like a blade, like a blade that you think would cut wood.
Yes.
It's like that, but for metal. And it's awesome.
Way nicer
Do you
than
have
a
one?
carbide. I don't,
Yeah.
and I wanted to ask you about the Evolution. Do you like that
Love
one?
it.
Did that one come from Trick Tools?
No, that one came from, I bought it from, where did I get that? Oh, I bought it from Praxair. Where I get all my welding supplies and stuff like that. But the bead roller I got from Trick.
Okay.
And the Scotchmen, they're in South Dakota. They're a company in North or South Dakota. And it was just cheaper for me to buy directly from Scotchmen. Oh, there's actually a dealer in Ontario. That's where I got that from. And I called Trick Tools because I have a good relationship with the guy that works there just from buying stuff over the years. And he's like, I said, I'm just going to buy it from these guys in Canada because shipping and duty and all, like shipping a big piece of equipment, it sucks because you're worried about, like when this shipped, I was like, oh man, I got a call. I was in a class and they're like, oh, we're at the border and the paperwork's not up to snuff and it's $125 an hour. And I'm like, well, so anyways, the paperwork was up to snuff, just someone made a mistake. So it ended up, the truck driver that dropped it off, he spent the night here. He's like, because he came late. I'm like, man, just you sleep in your. He's like, can I? I'm like, absolutely, you can sleep out in front of. I said, you want breakfast? I said, we're having barbecue. You want to come in and have some barbecue? He's like, oh, that's awesome. So he was really great. He was, and then I had to go get extensions for the table because I had a forklift here, but the forks weren't long enough to pick up the table. So he was even nice enough. He's like, okay, man, I'll wait for you. Like, I'm so disorganized when it comes to this stuff. So, and not knowing what you're going to need. So I went back, woke up at 5, got the extension, slipped them on the forklift, boomed the thing into here. And an hour later, I had it up and running. I was just like a kid in a toy store, like, all the sounds and everything it was making. To keep going, that's my frame fixture. So I built that. From scratch. Everything on it is CNC machined. The tower that you see there, like that neck tower, that came from Trick Tools. I ordered because it was like a strong hand, like my table there, the modular table. Yep. And over the years, I don't want to put my back to the camera, but over the years I built Sportster fixturing for 1983 to 2003 Evolution Sportster, XS 650 tooling. I built twin cam tooling. I built big twin tooling. So that's how all your motor mounts and everything line up and all that. Right. And there's some English like BSA that I haven't used yet because I just hadn't had a use for it. Right. And then I have a slip roll, a lift, plasma cutter, and then over there is the machine shop. So I have two CNC mills with a 4th axis. I have a lathe and 2 bender, and I have way too many welders just because I'm picky about my welding. And then there's another mill on that side and a big power hammer and stuff like that. So I'm very, very self-sufficient. in the Maritimes, you kind of have to be. And then in the other shop beside, like the garage,
Right.
I have a full powder coating shop. So I have like a big 6 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot oven and downdraft booth. So like the powder just gets like sucked right out of the shop. So, you know yourself, like when you're building a bike, what are you waiting on? Paint, powder coat, and chrome, right?
Yep.
So, and you're just, it's just kind of a mystery, when you're going to get it back. So I never liked, I have a really good painter, Sean. His name is Sean too right now. He's really quick and very talented. Like he's speedy and he's good. So I usually wait about like 30 days maybe for a paint job now. And then I can do all my powder coating, which means your chassis, your front end, the controls that you make, all your little knickknacks and stuff like that. And you can get your motor in because your frame's done, and then it doesn't matter if you're waiting, 20, 30 days for the tins, because you can start building. That'll keep you busy for a while, right? Before you get the tins. And then when you get the tins, it's the icing on the cake, like it's, it's just very exciting, right?
It's exciting for sure.
Especially when you get the tins and stuff like that back. Like it's amazing. So like I'm pretty...
Well, that's great. Yeah, you're well equipped here and you make the very best use out of a small space.
Yeah, it's about 24 by 36. So like just a little over 800 square feet. And then I have the other side, which is just a garage. People have asked me like over the years, like, what, are you going to move into a shop? And I'm happy. It's just me in here. My son is starting to come out here with me now a little bit more, which I'm excited about. So hopefully he probably turn it into something, he has the mindset to do that, like turn it into something that might be a bit bigger. Would I love to have a shop somewhere? Absolutely. But I would probably get zero work done because people would be coming in and out.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah, you need to pay someone for the counter. And what I do is manufacturing. Like I'm making parts, and like a lot of my business is just online. So I don't get to meet. I'm happy that you came because I get to meet, and, have a new friend and stuff like that. But it's not always like that. You're just ordering online, shipping it. You might get an email back. Hey, rad, it looks great. Thank you. And stuff like that. So a lot of the stuff I do and manufacture is just online, and then you ship it.
Well, that's funny because I was just going to say, you mentioned that you probably wouldn't get anything done, and here I am burning up your day.
It's fine. We prepared for it. No, it's all good. Yeah, no.
No, it is good.
I'm excited. I was excited for this.
So in 1989, I think it was, I started Bear Coat custom powder coating in Calgary. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And back then it was a big deal. I had a 20-foot oven.
And nobody knew what it was.
And nobody knew what it was.
And you're trying to tell them it's better than
lots
paint.
of commercial work and everything. And now, unfortunately, everybody who produces more than 10 steel whatevers puts in their own powder coating line. Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it was a no-brainer. Like, I only did it just to do my stuff. But then I started posting pictures, and then ended up doing rims and other things and stuff like that. And people are like, how big is your oven? And will it fit a car bumper? And I'm like, yeah, they want to do car bumpers and stuff like that. But that there too, powder coating, like that stuff has to stay super clean. Like cleanliness, right? For that.
And, Brent and I talked about this. Brent from PFX, Precision Frameworks, he and I talked about it. And I love painting now. Yeah. I got back into painting.
Nice.
And I hadn't touched it for 40 some odd years. Yeah. And I got back into it. I love it. I would much rather paint stuff than powder coat it, just because I enjoy it so much. Yeah. But he and I have talked, and powder coating done right is awesome. Yeah. Done wrong, it sucks like a Hoover.
Very frustrating because you can do 20 parts and they all come out decent, especially if it's like going on something that is going to be like eye candy and jewelry. Like, I tend to stay away from all the polished motors and stuff like that just because it's a lot of upkeep and everything. So a lot of my bikes are powder coat, like a lot of pieces are powder coated just because it will last a lot longer, and you're not sitting there polishing it and stuff like that. But one thing I found out recently, about like in the past year and a half, is they have a clear coat now. So when you powder coat like gloss black, you can hit it with a clear, and then it just kind of mellows everything out. But it can be really frustrating because you do everything textbook and then it comes out and you're like, oh man, you know, like it's not always going to be perfect, but it should be about, you know, 95, 90, you know, 99% perfect if the prep work is done right. Very frustrating though when it doesn't.
Orange peel is a problem.
But I mean, that's an issue even for like trucks that you buy to this day.
Yes.
If you look down the side of it's all orange peely and stuff. I just did a front end where I had to sandblast it twice.
Ooh.
And I'm like, man. And I was like looking up chemicals that'll strip powder coat, and a lot of them I don't want to use. They're just too harsh. So I ended up going, dropping it off. There's a big industrial sandblaster in Burnside. Burnside is the industrial park here.
Okay.
And they just blasted it for me. Went and did it again. Came out the same. I'm like, what's going on here? So anyways, I tweaked a few things, and I found out that the media they were kind of using, I brought the pieces home, they were blasted, but then I hit it with my media, like glass bead, because I use the green, it's environmentally friendly, like it can just fall, because I just blast outside. And I blasted it all with what the media I had, and it came out fine, right? So it's just little things like that, and gun settings and amperages and stuff like that are big, like, you know, understanding that is a big key to having a good
There is
coating.
very much an electrical process there. And, you know, again, and we could go on about it, but I've seen production lines. One major tool company doing their toolboxes. What they were doing was putting the toolbox in the oven,
and
getting it hot, and then spraying powder at it so
Hot
it would
flocking.
stick. And then the problem was you'd look at the side and you could tell it wasn't orange peel. It was gooped on. You could see how bad it was. And they couldn't understand why they couldn't get a decent finish on their toolboxes. And I went in and said, man, you got to rely on the attraction of the powder to the steel.
That's right.
It's like a magnet. Then you get a nice even surface. Everything
It'll
goes
apply
right.
evenly.
Absolutely.
The other thing I did, like that helped me out, was I hooked my gun right to a ground rod in the So that was a big thing. And what you mentioned before, like spraying hot, they call that hot flocking. I don't know why they call it that, but that's what it's called. And it's hard to gauge how much powder's going on, like, and you can get like you can actually get runs in the powder coat where it's like dripping and stuff like that.
You sure can.
So for me, I just sandblast everything. Once it's blasted, rubber gloves, don't touch it with because there's oils on your hands and stuff like that. And I spray it cold, and I get and I use a primer, like I use a base primer. And then every time you lay a coat, you've got to back your gun off a little bit, right? A little bit more, so it'll apply. And then put it in, and the powder coat will tell you, 20 minutes at 400 or 10 minutes at 400. And if I put it in the ovens at 100, or sometimes I'll put it in, I'll warm up the oven to like 150, put it in. I don't start clocking that 10 minutes until that oven hits the peak, temperature. So I'm fortunate enough, there's a timer and everything on it. This is going to be boring to a lot of people, but there's a timer on my oven. It'll shut it off. So it'll start countdown like soon as we reach like 400, which is a lot of epoxy, not epoxy, but I guess epoxy, not epoxy primers. What? Yeah.
Polyester?
Yeah, polyester primers are around 400.
Because epoxies don't do well with UV light.
That's right.
Polyester does real well with UV.
And then when you hit it with clear, it lasts.
Yeah.
You've got the UV rays from outside have to get through that clear to get at the powder. Yeah. So I've been doing clear on my stuff at like just the past year and a half, and it goes on really good. Like when you've got a nice part that's like gloss black, and then you go spray all this clear because it goes on like it looks white.
Yep.
You're like, man, the first time I did it, I'm like, am I wrecking this part? And then you put it in the oven and it comes out fine. But it always follow the manufacturer's recommendations. They'll tell you, cool it down 100% ambient temperature, then apply.
Yes.
And make sure you have a good ground. And cleanliness. But it's very frustrating. You do parts and for some reason you follow all the guidelines, but for some reason some won't come out as good. Could be the metal, could be porous, like off-gassing too.
Yes.
Especially if you're doing old cases and stuff. Like we did all this stuff, right?
Oh, the stuff is so porous.
Oil in it.
And all kinds of stuff.
Your oven will be full of smoke, right? Yeah. You open the door and it's, oh, it stinks, man. Yeah. Anyway.
Right on. Well, that's fantastic. So something else I learned today about Sean that I didn't know is this guy really is a family guy. And I really respect that. And I don't want you to talk about your family any more than you're comfortable with or anything. I know a lot of people don't bring their family into it. But what was really cool here this morning when I came in is on the plane last night, I was reading Easy Rider, and I read the article about, what's his name, Kevin Teach Bass, B-A-S.
Oh, Kevin Bass?
And Momoa.
Jason Momoa?
Jason Momoa. And how Jason Momoa wound up visiting them. I don't know why. You read the story for yourself. But the bottom line is, they got Kevin, the dad, they got his original pan or shovel. I forget now. Yeah. Anyway, they got his original bike back, the first one that he built. And Jason Momoa bought it from this guy that they went to see who had it. And when they brought it back and cleaned it up and did whatever they did with it, Jason was so impressed with Kevin's son, who was 16 at the time. He said, if you get good grades and learn how to ride properly, when you're 19, I will ship this bike back to you. And he took the bike, and 2 or 4 weeks after he turned 19, they got a phone call that there was a special shipment on the way.
That's awesome.
And Jason Momoa shipped the bike back to the kid. It's a great story.
Where was this? What was it? And is it on YouTube or is it on
Easy Rider magazine?
Oh, okay.
And I've been on Kevin's social media. So I saw something about it there. Yeah. But this little article in Easy Rider is really, really good.
Okay.
I think it's very cool that a guy like Jason Momoa would do that.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, for that 19-year-old, holy smokes. To have dad's first bike and Jason Momoa bought it for you?
That's pretty rad.
Does it get any better than that?
That's pretty cool, man.
So anyway, it was interesting that I read that on the plane and then got here and met Sean and found out what a family-oriented guy he is. And now I want him to tell you about what we're standing in front of, because that just ties into this whole thing. And I'm going to back out of the way so that he can just kind of describe the whole bike, and I'll be off camera for a minute.
All right, so this is a 1964 slab side panhead. I had run this engine in a bike before, but I started building this, and hopefully Ryan, he's busy with hockey. My son, he's a hockey player, loves hockey. Don't want to take him away from any of that, but I'm going to build this for my son. He just got his license, his beginners, which was kind of scary, like in August. And I'm like, I remember we built up like a lot of hype. I'm like, me as a father stress out probably 100 times more than I really need to. Right. And I'm like, is he going to pass? If he doesn't pass, then is he going to be like, not want to get his license? Anyways, he went and got his beginners right away. So he's a smart kid. He's like my wife. He's not like me. So I started building this, and I said to him, I said, we'll build this for you. And he said, really? He said, that's not for me. He said, that's for a customer. I said, no, man. I said, we just had this conversation like a few days ago. I'm like, I'll build this for you. And I said, you can ride this to high school next year. But I have to teach them, how to ride. Obviously, I would take the course with them. I would take it with them as a refresher, because it's always good to do that kind of stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, it's a 64 pan head, which I believe was the last year, wasn't it? 64 was last year for pan. It's on a frame that I built. I hand formed the fender out of 18 gauge. I started the oil tank. I kind of like that style. And I'm going to eventually, I'll like mill some nice inserts for the sides, like aluminum, like some T6, real nice kind of eye candy. I ran a hydraulic clutch for it with kicker. So I forget the name of the company that makes this, but they're great kits and they're relatively cheap. They were like $270 American, which is still really half decent for us guys up north.
Yeah.
It's got a mid-USA vintage style Springer, not one of my Springers, but because I wanted the vintage look, right? It's got a new carburetor. This is an Ultima, but this is going to come off, and I'm going to put a black S&S, because when we build this, I know we're talking about the bike before it's done, but when I envisioned it, he doesn't get a whole lot of say about the paint and stuff like that. I'm going to build it. We're going to build it. He was out here with me yesterday or the day before, and we did up the final drive. We machined up the mock-up spacers. That's a break from a 2003 Harley Davidson and the master cylinder. But when it's done, I'm going to gloss black the chassis. I'm going to take apart the whole front end, powder coat it gloss black. The tins are going to be gloss black with a candy, like a light candy, not light, but a candy green flame with probably a silver base or gold base underneath, and a white pinstripe on the hot rod flames, right? So I can see the bike already, like I see it in my head, like done.
Right.
But, it's pretty awesome to be able to do that with your son, right? And the thing is, if he gets anything out of it, he learns a little bit about trades, because there's kind of like a cliche where people don't, like, I'm part of Local 56. I'm part of the pipe fitters and welders trade. And it kind of gets like people don't think it's you're dumb tradesmen. As cliche as that sounds, that's kind of what people think.
Right.
But it's quite the opposite. Like, there's a lot of stuff to know, and I mean, the trades have been really great to me. I live in a nice house. I live in a nice neighborhood. I own motorcycles and stuff like that. And I think the younger generation has to, keep their mind open for this to be an option for them. And for my son to kind of learn that, like, he can take with it if he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't. I never force, anything upon my kids that they don't want to do. But that being said, when I say, hey, can you come out and help me? He just comes out and helps me. There's no, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Right. So, he enjoys the time. And if I can teach him something, that's great. Because, a lot of us growing up, you and I, we had to learn everything ourselves. There wasn't, probably single family or single parent income, back then and stuff. And you didn't have the options and everything that they do now. So if I can teach...
And I'll tell you, my dad was an absolutely awesome man.
Me too.
Loved him to death.
Yeah.
But he couldn't do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We had a carport. We didn't have a garage.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to do this stuff.
They actually park cars in it.
Yeah. So I was on my own.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, oh my goodness, 16, riding this to high school. Who wants Sean as a dad? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's just, I mean, it's just something nice to do and spend time with them. That's a thing that kind of, doesn't happen this day and age anymore. Like spending,
You're right.
Your kid, when I had children, I have two children. I have a daughter and I have a son. And I'm not the father of the year. I'm not the best, but I do my best. But you got to invest. You got to spend time with them. You got to talk to them. You got to tell them, when they're little kids, you've got to kind of set them straight.
This year, I'd say you're in the running for father of the year. You're right there, buddy.
This alone, yeah. On motorcycle wise, yeah. So, but no, hopefully he'll treat it and with respect and. If I want to take it for a ride, then he'll let me, right?
Yeah, there you go.
But what other kid is going to have a 64 panhead that they're, you know what I mean?
Unbelievable.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think
great.
it's cool.
That wraps up part 1 of our episode with Sean at Sean's Non-Stock Customs. Now that you know Sean, please join us in a couple weeks for part 2 when we learn more about SNS Customs, the products SNS produces, and the SNS hardtail kit for a Yamaha XS 650. Don't forget to subscribe to Speed and Color, turn on notifications, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment.